Welcome everyone to our 350th Incorporation Day celebration. Incorporated May 31st, 1670. I am Edward Lesko, co-chairman of the 350th Anniversary Steering Committee. I'd like to start off by recognizing the members of our committee who have worked so hard the past 3 years to bring all of the events for our town's 350th anniversary celebration to all of you. Anna Holhut, Bobby Betsold, Cher Nicholas, Diana Syznal, Laurie Banis, Lucinda Williams, Mike Cahill, Mike Poshik, Paul Abbey, Stephanie Slish, and also I'd like to recognize Little Master who helped out with the startup of our committee. I'd like to take this time to thank our committee members and all volunteers for their dedication and hard work throughout the past 3 years to make this year special. I would also like to thank Marlene Machonsky, our town administrator, Hatfield Board of Select Board, Police, Fire, Board of Health, DPW, and also the town secretary staff for their assistance in arranging this event and numerous other tasks related to the 350th celebration. As we're gathered here today, distancing ourselves because of the COVID-19, or better known as the coronavirus, to celebrate 350 years of Hatfield heritage. Because of the virus that has affected so many of us, we have modified many of our events planned for this year. Changes to the events are placed on our website at www.hatfield350.com. We originally planned the river crossing to start this event off, but due to the virus, our boat builders, Captain Brian Nicholas, Bob Osley, George Vakula, and Paul Dosto, could not complete the boat on time due to social distancing. We'd like to thank them for their time and effort in trying to complete it. Guest speakers today will be as follows: Dr. Cher Nicholas, Historical Representative for the Hatfield 350th Anniversary; the Honorable Joe Comerford, Massachusetts State Senator for the Hampshire, Franklin, and Worcester districts; the Honorable Lindsay Sabadosa, Massachusetts State Representative, 1st Hampshire District; Diana Syznal, Chairperson of the Hatfield Select Board; David Phil II, Chairman of the Hadley Select Board; Reverend Randolph Calvo, First Congregational Church of Hatfield; Belden Family Representatives, Darryl Williams and Bill Belden, 350 years of Hatfield Family; Bobby Betsold, Incorporation Day, past, present, and future of Hatfield, Massachusetts. Closing will be Cher Nicholas. I'd like to thank our guest speakers for joining us here today. Our first guest speaker, who has made the event take place, has spent numerous hours of research, planning, and documenting all aspects of this event. She is our historical representative for the 350th Anniversary Steering Committee. At this time, I'd like to turn this over to Cher Nicholas. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed Lesko, for that welcome, and thank you for all your work on this special event, because today is a very historic day for the town of Hatfield. On May 31st, 1670, 350 years ago, the Massachusetts General Court, at a court of elections held in Boston, issued an order proclaiming Hatfield to be a township of its own. But Hatfield's history starts much earlier than that date, when families decided by 1661 to have their home lots on what was called the west side of the river. At that time, there was one town, Hadley, with families living on both the east and the west side of the Connecticut River. The meeting house The center for all civil and churchly gatherings was on the east side, and this required those living here on the west, about 25 or so families, to cross the river in their canoes and boats during all seasons. Yet, at times, this was not possible, but their Puritan faith did require them to celebrate the Sabbath. These river crossings, both in the summer and winter, could be dangerous and presented many hazardous situations for the men, women, and children in crossing in the canoes. Many times during the winter months, the river was frozen over and the men had to cut the canoes out of the ice. In the spring, when floods are still a well-known event in Hatfield today, the Connecticut River would be so high, the waters rough, and the current so strong that the river passage was impossible. These families decided they wanted to have a minister and a meeting house on their side of the river. In effect, they wanted to be a town of their own. And so, it was the hardships of the river crossings that was to provide the motivation for them to petition the General Court in Boston starting in 1667 for this desire. The families appealed to the General Court and their neighbors on the east side of the river that they would be pleased if they would grant them liberty to be a society of themselves. Many petitions would be written in 1668 and 1669 before this grant would become a reality. And on December 22nd, 1669, leaders from both the west and the east side of the river met to discuss the bounds of the new separate town called Hatfield. 5 men from Hadley and 5 men from Hatfield met to sign their names to a document called the Articles of Agreement, which laid out the bounds of the new town. Still, today, 350 years later, we can recognize some of these last names of these 5 Hatfield men, either because we read monuments in the center of town that are dedicated to them, or because they are our current neighbors. Let me share their names with you. Thomas Meekins, William Alice, John Coles, Isaac Graves, and Samuel Belden. 6 months after the Articles of Agreement were signed, the Massachusetts General Court granted Hatfield liberty to be a distinct town of themselves. The Connecticut River and the river crossings then hold a special significance for Hatfield, and as part of this year's celebration, the 350th Steering Committee planned a symbolic river crossing for this day, a historic representation of the type of boat Hatfield's early English settlers used to cross the Connecticut River was being constructed, and the plan had been to reenact the river crossing. Unfortunately, due to the COVID-19 situation, many of our original plans for today had to be changed. I would like to thank the individuals who worked for many, many months on those earlier plans. They are Kathy Belden Olson, Amy Novak, Wonderly Strauder, Stephanie Schlisch, Bobby Betsold, and the Reverend Randy Calvo. Additionally, the construction of the replica historic boat had to be postponed, but be assured that this boat will be completed and the river crossing will take place. If not this year, then next year. This event will involve officials from Hadley, and we will inform you when the river crossing will take place. Over 350 years ago, the families on the west side of the river faced many challenges, one of which was the river crossing. Today, on this May 31st, in 2020, we face other challenges, and like our early Hatfield ancestors, we too will rise stronger and look forward to Hatfield's future for the next 350 years. Thank you.
Good morning, esteemed members of the 350th Anniversary Committee, Chair Syznal, and members of the Hatfield Board of Selectmen. Thank you to everyone who has joined together to create today's important commemoration, the Incorporation of Hatfield 350 years ago. Thank you to the Board of Selectmen and all who have served Hatfield as elected officials, municipal officials, first responders, educators, and civil servants. Your exceptional work keeps Hatfield beautiful, strong, and resilient, even in difficult times like these. Thank you to today's fellow speakers who will discuss the town's history, its agricultural roots, its faith-centered foundation, its deep commitment to philanthropy, and its abiding belief in the well-being of the region's people. I am proud to serve Hatfield in the Massachusetts State Senate in partnership with Representative Sabadosa. The Hampshire Franklin-Worcester State Senate district is defined by the majestic Connecticut River, which winds down from Vermont and New Hampshire borders through Hatfield's beautiful shores. For 350 years, Hatfield's people, and for a millennia before that, the indigenous communities that predate them on this land, have understood something that poet, novelist, and farmer Wendell Berry put beautifully into words. Quote, "The soil is the great connector of lives, the source and destination of all. It is the healer and restorer and resurrector, by which diseases pass into health, age into youth, death into life. Without proper care for it, we can have no community, because without proper care for the soil, we can have no life." End quote. The soil connects us to each other. It is in caring for it that we care for each other. It is in caring for it that we build community. And that sums for me the kind of energy and commitment here in Hatfield. I have a vivid memory from decades ago where a new friend, Archie Markham, said to me, "You just have to visit Hatfield. It is the most beautiful town in our area." Dutifully, I drove to Hatfield and stopped just about here to walk down the wide street and take in the town's history. Little did I know then that I would return many times to see dear friends like Greg and Betsy Speeder, or to work at the food bank of Western Massachusetts. Little did I know I would stand here as your state senator, tour your family farms looking for ways to be the strongest possible advocate to your farmers, the strongest possible advocate to Hatfield and its people, now and in the days ahead. Thank you so much for giving me the honor of serving you and this absolutely exquisite community. And let me close by saying, happy birthday, Hatfield. Thank you so much.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to join you on this beautiful day to commemorate the 350th anniversary of Hatfield's Incorporation. Earlier today, I had the pleasure of joining the Hatfield Congregational Church for their service and celebration of Incorporation Day, and I want to share some of the remarks that I gave. Although we could not be there in person, we were able to be there together virtually, and I can assure you that there was no better way to mark this momentous occasion than by seeing some of the faces who make the community of Hatfield the place that it is. As I sat down to reflect on this occasion, one image kept returning to me, that of water. Water is powerful and important to the founding of Hatfield and its history. On a practical level, those who settled Hatfield traveled here by water. The sediment and silt carried by the water mixed with the earth to create the fertile, rich soil that has nourished generations, making Hatfield famous for its harvests. The power of the water was used to create mills that led to economic prosperity and the flourishing of a community that is an integral part of the Connecticut River Valley, known both for its independence and its love of tradition. The image of water, however, carries well beyond what it tangibly gave and continues to give Hatfield. When I think of water, I think of resiliency. We are truly blessed to have both the Connecticut and the Mill Rivers in our backyards. And I know I spend as much time as I can on, in, and around the water, watching how it changes from season to season, and even day to day. It solves problems, finding a way to flow even when there is something in its path. It smooths out fallen branches and stones, making them part of its ecosystem. And even on the hottest summer day, when it feels nothing is moving at all, or in the dead of winter, when covered in ice beneath the surface, it is never still and constantly changing. It is that constant motion that makes it resilient, that belief in change, that desire to thrive and continue. Stagnation is not in its vocabulary, and in fact goes against the very essence of its being. The same is true of Hatfield. The reason we are celebrating 350 years is not because of one singular great event that happened 350 years ago. It is because Hatfield has worked day in and day out to be a community, a place where people want to live. Like the water that surrounds it, Hatfield has continued to evolve, welcoming the new with the understanding that change is constant and necessary for survival. Over the last few years, I have come to love Hatfield in new ways as I spend more and more time in the community. For my family, it has always been the place where we started our trek each year. During the Food Bank of Western Massachusetts, we'll bike for food, and the location of many, many, many long miles during the Mother's Day half marathon. Now, though, we've added more Hatfield traditions to our must-do list. Coming to town for the Luminarium and waiting in line for homemade strawberry shortcake at the Strawberry Fest. Stopping in at the community garden events or a display at historic Hatfield. Swinging by our favorite farm stands, and there are many. When we drive, bike, and walk through Hatfield, we are now walking past the home of friends and taking delight in how welcome Hatfield has made us feel. That is the essence of the community, the spirit of the place, and for that I am grateful. As a sign of that gratitude, I would like to present a personal gift to the town of Hatfield today, a framed copy of the Charter from the State Archives with a certificate of authenticity from the Secretary of State. May they be displayed wheresoever the town chooses for many years again to come. Congratulations and happy Incorporation Day. Oh. Congratulations, Diana. Thank you. Thank you. Very nice. Oh, okay.
Hello, my Hatfield friends. I would like to thank and acknowledge our legislators for making time to be here today. Senator Comerford and Representative Sabadosa, we are grateful you're here with us on this special day. What an honor it is to stand here representing the Hatfield Select Board. I thank my colleagues Edmund Jaworski and Brian Moriarty for allowing me the honor of speaking on our behalf. And also on behalf of the board, I want to welcome Hadley to town today. I'm grateful that we will be joined by David Phil of the Hadley Select Board. We honor and respect our roots, David, and your presence here today is much appreciated. I want to recognize the outstanding efforts and dedication of the Hatfield 350th Committee. I am proud to be a member of this group who has worked for over 3 years to plan a celebration worthy of this remarkable milestone. Well, we've had to pivot a bit in light of the difficult situation we're feeling globally. We promise you that we will still find ways to engage our residents and honor this town we love so much. We do this because of that overwhelming sense of pride we get when we tell people we're from Hatfield. We do it because Hatfield is a special place. Beautiful farm fields, speckled with gorgeous homes, bordered on the east by the mighty Connecticut River and on the west by pretty forests and foothills. We want to celebrate her history, her rich history that has been lovingly discussed here by Cher Nicholas. Thank you, Cher. We celebrate our commitment to agriculture. We know that living among open fields with plentiful summer crops is the stuff of dreams. We will be joined today by members of the Belden family, a founding family who are still here and still farming. We have the gift of some of the richest soil in the world here in Hatfield. Our farmers have been excellent stewards of that land, and we are all the better for it. My children can attest that I regularly tell them as we drive through town that we live in a pretty place. There is no question that our farms are the root of that beauty. We are committed to our children here in Hatfield. Our school system, the smallest in the Commonwealth, was founded by Sophia Smith. Sophia was a pioneer in the education of women, founding both Smith Academy and Smith College. Her brother, Oliver Smith, founded Smith Vocational, the oldest vocational agricultural high school in the United States. Many years ago, we made a commitment to educate our kids, to not regionalize when it was fashionable to do so. and when financial pressures could have made us cave in. We have managed to maintain high academic standards and maintain important traditions like holding the longest running declamations in the country. We have produced some of the best athletes in Western Massachusetts, including an Olympic bronze medalist. Our gym is bursting at the seams with championship banners, and our school lobby boasts trophies dating back decades. But we know that Smith Academy students and athletes are best known for their sportsmanship, hard work, and sense of community. Hatfield has long been a place where business and industry could thrive. From the early days of manufacturing guns and brooms to our modern day businesses, Hatfield has always been blessed with businesses that increase the quality of our life by contributing to our community in many positive ways. Today, we have multi-billion-dollar corporations that can quietly do their business here by hopping on and off Route 91. We have family-owned small businesses that thrive because townspeople always choose local businesses whenever possible. On behalf of the Select Board, I want to recognize our outstanding town departments who do incredible work on the smallest of budgets. Our Council on Aging cares for and engages our elderly residents. Our schools, library, and recreation departments give our children the best opportunities possible. Our emergency services, police, fire, and ambulance keep us safe and care for us on our most difficult days. And our DPW keeps this place looking beautiful. Our outstanding employees and officials, some of whom have dedicated their entire lives to this town, all work together toward the common goal of caring for our residents. Do you know that people who live in Hatfield have lived here longer than any other town in the Commonwealth? There is no reason to leave. We have everything we need right here. A beautiful and safe town, rivers, mountains, open space. Here we live surrounded by our family and friends, close to other great communities. Route 91 that splits our little town in half provides us easy access to the Pike, the airport, or any other place we may need to go temporarily. It also brings us home. We have a great hospital close by, founded by Hatfield native Caleb Cooley Dickinson, great schools, excellent churches and clergy, and we have our people who care for their neighbors, people who take beautiful care of their homes, people who would give you the shirt off their back, people who value the gift of Hatfield. With 350 years behind us, on this significant day, we celebrate this town, this gift, this pretty place. We celebrate Hatfield.
Good afternoon. On behalf of the town of Hadley and the Hadley Select Board, I would like to thank you for the opportunity to join you in celebrating your 350th anniversary of Hatfield. Although today's celebration is certainly very different than that which all of us had initially envisioned due to the COVID-19 pandemic, I applaud your elected officials, volunteers, and all of the Hatfield residents for being flexible and continuing with the celebration as best as possible over the next year. I was born and raised in Hadley and graduated from Hopkins Academy, but don't hold that against me. The Smith and Hopkins rivalry in sports and other areas was and is still alive today. But the truth is that our two small towns have such a rivalry because we are so similar in so many ways. Our shared agricultural history, our current agricultural future, our economy, our amazing historical past are some of the things that make us so unique and part of what we have in common. I will leave the rest of the history to the experts of your town's historical society, and instead, I'd like to talk about the future. Change is inevitable, and that seems to be truer today than ever before. We shouldn't try to fight change, whether that's economic change, changes in technology, or changes in some other form. What we should resist is the pressure to change that which makes Hatfield so unique and what works for this great town. The town meeting form of government, the select board, they have a long and successful history of working extraordinarily well in the good times and the challenging times like we're facing now. And that's something that's unique only here in New England. Only in small town America and places like Hatfield can you walk into town hall and walk out a few minutes later with the permit or required paperwork in hand. Only in places like Hatfield can you call a select board member on their cell phone on the weekend and get an answer to a pressing issue. The current situation all of us are facing with the COVID-19 pandemic is certainly challenging financially and logistically, but not a challenge that we won't overcome. Our current times are a mere speed bump along the great history of the town of Hatfield, and the surrounding areas will emerge stronger and better than ever before when this is all behind us. Only here in New England are towns run by elected officials purely on a voluntarily and mostly unpaid basis. Volunteerism is important and works because the residents of Hatfield recognize that what we have is special and something that absolutely needs to be protected. The volunteers in this great town, whether those who arranged the 350th celebration, park and rec coaches, historical society, and so many others, don't do it for the money. They do it for the community, and they do it for the town of Hatfield that they love. My wife Brandy is from the other Portland area, Portland, Oregon, and her first experience in Hatfield was many years ago at the Luminaries, something that we have now done every year since. Her first comment was that this was something out of a Hallmark movie. Our way of life here in the Pioneer Valley is special. We live in one of the most beautiful areas of the United States, on some of the most fertile agricultural lands, and near some of the most prestigious universities, and in close proximity to cutting-edge technology and manufacturing companies. Those scenes from the Hallmark classics and the perfection that is portrayed in Norman Rockwell paintings are the lives that we live on a daily basis. Never take that for granted. Congratulations on an amazing 350 years, and here's to another 350 more.
Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, we must gather today in limited numbers, but we nonetheless must celebrate and give thanks for the people who were the first citizens of Hatfield. And since I am the pastor of the First Congregational Church of Hatfield, United Church of Christ, I also remember these people as the first members of our church. It is appropriate that today is also Pentecost Sunday, the spirit-driven birthday of the entire Christian church. Our story begins with the religious persecution of the Puritans in England, one of whom was Reverend Thomas Hooker. Finding religious intolerance on this side of the Atlantic as well, Reverend Hooker and like-minded souls moved from Boston to Hartford and Wethersfield. Again, not being able to practice their faith conscientiously, they moved north along the Connecticut River to found Hadley, a colonial settlement on both sides of the river. I've walked my dog along the banks of the Connecticut in the winter and seen what it looks like on a cold January morning. The West Siders had to physically cross the river every time they wished to worship and to share in town government. I give them credit. As you have heard, they petitioned the General Court for the right to incorporate as Hatfield, and colonial Massachusetts required that a settlement must have a meeting house and a minister. The first meeting house was located just east of our current church building, just down the road from here. The church stood in the middle of the main street, symbolizing the union of the civic and the religious. Their first pastor was Reverend Hope Atherton. This man of a reported small stature and recently graduated from Harvard College ventured out to a world here in Western Massachusetts he probably could not have imagined. But with place and pasture procured, Hatfield was incorporated on this very day 350 years ago. Reverend Atherton served as the chaplain to the unit that fell during the Bloody Brook Massacre in Deerfield, and again in the debacle that was Captain Turner's attack on Native American encampment to the north. In the hasty retreat from this second battle, Reverend Atherton became separated from the others and was lost in the woods for several days. It is said that he never fully recuperated from this experience and died 1 year later, still a young man. His remains are most likely buried somewhere here in Hatfield, unmarked, but forever a part of this town. When Deerfield was abandoned in 1704, Hatfield and Hadley were the northwestern frontier of Massachusetts. These hardy souls faced hardships that even the COVID-19 pandemic cannot approach. Even so, Reverend Joseph Lyman offered prayers as Minutemen went off from here to fight in the Revolutionary War. Shays' Rebellion was planned right in our meeting house, again just down the road, when representatives from 50 towns gathered here for 3 days. That rebellion had a direct effect on the Constitutional Convention the very next year. We've had a hand in the establishment of Smith Academy and also Smith College, where women would enjoy the blessings of an education. We cherish and honor our past by continuing to follow its example of religious reform and community activism. In our church, facing out towards Main Street is a stained glass window of Jesus knocking at the door, reminding everyone that passes by that Jesus' invitation to enter is offered to all people, whoever you may be. This is why we voted to join the United Church of Christ in 1960 under the banner of Jesus' words that they all may be one, and why we voted to become an open and affirming congregation, which means that we intentionally welcome into the full life of our church all people, regardless of how they may choose to love. Of course, Reverend Hooker 350 years ago would be aghast at such a pronouncement like that, but it flows from the same desire for religious freedom and respect for all people that led him and his people from England to Boston to Hartford and then to Hatfield 350 years ago. That kind of time changes people, it changes places, but it also reveals the lasting bedrock that lies underneath, and that bedrock is the God-given dignity of all people. As we celebrate the 350th anniversary of Hatfield, the First Congregational Church of Hatfield, United Church of Christ, offers our prayers of thanksgiving for the people, the families, and the institutions that have been a part of Hatfield's past 3.5 centuries. And we pray for God's blessings and presence among the people of this town as we continue on toward our 400th anniversary and beyond. May God bless the town of Hatfield and her citizens on this Incorporation Day 2020. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Darryl Williams, and I'm a 12th generation Hatfield resident and one of the many direct descendants of Samuel Belden. I am here representing all the families of those original Hatfield settlers who came to this beautiful place and stayed. Samuel Belden first arrived in Hatfield in 1661, so we've been here a while. I am a dairy farmer, and my family and I are still actively farming the same land that has been entrusted to the Belden family for over 350 years. The first Samuel Belden was one of 10 men who signed the Articles of Agreement with the town of Hadley that define the new bounds of our bucolic town. Our ancestor, Samuel Belden, was instrumental then in enabling this town to have the liberty to be a township of its own, and Hatfield, Massachusetts was born. There are 14 generations and about 20 direct Belden descendants currently living in Hatfield, and 7 direct descendants from those Hatfield Beldens who have remade Hadley their home. Many of us are still involved in the governance of Hatfield and in the Hatfield Congregational Church, which was established at the same time as our town. I'd like to introduce my friend, Hatfield former fire chief, and my third cousin, Bill Belden, to read the Hatfield Proclamation that was issued by the General Court on May 31st, 1670, 350 years ago today.
At a general court of election held at Boston on May 11, 1670, and documented in the General Court official record on May 31, 1670, the proclamation for the new town of Hatfield reads as follows. In answer to the petition of the inhabitants of Hadley on the west side of the river, that they may be allowed to be a town of themselves, distinct from Hadley on the east side, the deputy of Hadley certifying that the town has consented to release them if this court does approve thereof, etc. This court does therefore allow them on the west side of the river to be a township, distinct from them on the east side of the river, and does grant them a tract of land westward, 6 miles back into the woods from the great river, their southerly bounds to be Northampton northerly bounds, and the land which Hadley reserves to themselves, and from their said southerly line to run up the river northerly upon the square 6 miles. Their northerly bounds likewise to run back from the great river 6 miles westward, as before, reserving properties formerly granted to any person, and that this town be called Hatfield.
On this day, 350 years ago, the original inhabitants of the land that is now Hatfield were granted that they may be allowed to be a town of themselves. This marked the successful completion of their difficult, decade-long effort. With this historical occasion started a new chapter in their lives, and the first official chapter in the lives of the great town we know as Hatfield. The next 3.5 centuries of our town's history have seen both many more challenges and many more triumphs. From our early involvement in King Philip's War and Shays' Rebellion, through the Civil and World Wars, and all the way through today, we have seen many of the brave men and women of Hatfield serve our country. Our residents have endured through floods, blizzards, fires, illness, and economic hardship. Through all of this, we have not only persevered as a community, we have thrived and we have succeeded. As you've heard earlier, our agriculture is envied, our schools filled with success, our business community thriving, and our residents proud. Doctors, lawyers, judges, engineers, architects, scientists, and many more have called Hatfield home. We have been represented by residents internationally in the arts, athletics, literature, business, and government. Our town, small but mighty, is a place where people want to live, where they want to raise their families, where they want to retire. It is where they want to call home. Many things have remained the same since this day 350 years ago. We remain a community rooted deeply in agriculture, with the lands along the Great River, referenced in the General Court's proclamation, still being a major part of our town's livelihood. Our residents remain committed and never one to back down from challenging times, despite our small community. The pride in the town runs deep, and for so many good reasons. We reflect today on our history. We remember those who came before us, who helped pave the way for the Hatfield that we know and love. We also look to the future and to the history that we will make as we continue the proud traditions of Hatfield. We strive to build on and grow what has been made for us, in hopes that future generations will someday reflect upon and appreciate what we have made for them. We do this as a community, working together, overcoming challenges, celebrating successes, and maintaining the direction our ancestors worked so hard for over 350 years ago. On May 30th, 1895, during the 225th anniversary of Hatfield, and at the dedication of the former Hatfield Memorial Town Hall, now the Dickinson Memorial Library and Hatfield Historical Museum, Charles K. Morton spoke. "We point with pride to our ancestry, brave, self-sacrificing people, thrifty but just, frugal but generous. Their influence and example have gone out through the length and breadth of this land. They have left us this goodly heritage. May we, our children, our children's children, prove worthy of this trust. It is my hope that today, as we gather together apart in these trying and unusual times, that our original inhabitants and all that have followed would approve of the town of Hatfield that we live in today, and the town of Hatfield that we will leave for all that will follow us. Thank you."
The town of Hatfield and the 350th Anniversary Steering Committee want to sincerely thank all those that made this Incorporation Day event possible. Since we could not gather in person today, we hope that you will consider sending us virtual congratulations. This could be a picture, a short video, or a letter wishing Hatfield, Massachusetts, a happy birthday. You could please send your virtual contributions to hctv@townofhatfield.org. That's hctv@townofhatfield.org. We want to especially thank many of you that have already sent us some wonderful videos and letters, which will be compiled into our 350th Incorporation Day video. This video will be available online and on the local access cable channel. Finally, From all of us to all of you, be safe, be well, and please join me in wishing the town of Hatfield, Massachusetts a happy 350th birthday on its official incorporation. Happy birthday, Hatfield.